The US, you've just said they're kind of pulling out, slowly, gradually pulling out. And I think that
Trump is trying, is wanting to, it seems, yeah, that he wants
but
to.
There's also been, let me try to find that piece of information about the US telling Europe that they'd be reducing their military support to the Balkan nations.
Yes, true.
Is that true?
Yeah, that is true. Reuters confirmed
the Nordic nations, sorry.
2-3 days ago.
Yeah, so what do we know the details there? Like how, if it's confirmed, is it reported, and what would that look like? How big of a drop over what period of time? To which nations?
I think you're onto something. I think you nailed it. This meeting allegedly took place in August, with Pentagon officials telling the Europeans that they're decreasing their
exactly, there it is. It happened. Well done. Yeah, good memory. Yeah, to the Baltic nations, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. They warned Europe they need to rely less on America, since Trump wants the U.S. military focus more on homeland defense.
So that happened in August.
The U.S. planned to cut off some security assistance to Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, all NATO members bordering Russia.
So let's put the timeline together. This meeting allegedly took place in August, middle of August, sometime around there. I'm not sure the exact. I don't think they put a date in the article. But this meeting happens in August, and all of a sudden, what do you have in September? You have all of these drones and these fighter jets, and all of it leads up to the UN, right? As at a time when the United States is telling the Baltic nations, telling Poland, telling the Eastern Front of NATO, look, you guys need to deal with the Russians on your own, or less dependent on us. You can't be so dependent on us.
So then, so how can Europe then prepare for? How can Europe then not accept a peace deal based on those circumstances without American support?
Well, that's what Europe's trying to avoid. That's what they're trying to avoid. They're trying to avoid that's their nightmare scenario.
But then why would Russia accept the deal, the previous deal, the June deal, I think the Istanbul deal, the same terms? Why would they accept those terms today if they see the US pulling out? If the US showing their cards like, hey, we're going to pull out, Ukraine has no hope without the US. Doesn't that just indicate to Russia, hey, continue the war? There's no reason to stop. You've got a lot of domestic support for the war. You can take up more territory and get more support.
Look, even with the US outside of boots on the ground, even with the US, Russia can still continue to win this war. I mean, there's nothing that the US can add that is going to be this wonder miracle weapon or miracle play that will shift the trajectory of this thing. There's nothing that they have outside of boots on the ground. So I think, when you look at Russia and when you look at Putin, he still is talking about Istanbul Plus, at least for now. I don't know, maybe the terms are going to change any day now, but he's still talking about Istanbul Plus because in Putin's calculus, it's better to have a negotiated diplomatic settlement, especially with a power like the United States, than to perhaps end up in a situation where you have, for many, many decades, an aggressive, antagonistic Europe and United States on your border. I think he's seeing it from a long-term perspective. It's preferable that at least between Russia and the United States, and Europe will do whatever the United States, if eventually what the United States dictates to Europe, Europe is going to have to do eventually. They'll kick and they'll scream, but eventually they'll get into line. Even Putin said as much. Eventually, Europe gets into line. So he sees it as look, what's preferable? Yes, we're going to win this war. Yes, we can go as far as we want. But long term, does that serve our interests to be in this state of constant tension and constant escalation? No. So isn't it preferable now that I have Trump, now that I have a president who's ready to talk to me? Because we forget Biden was three years of not even talking. So now I finally have someone who at least wants to talk, or at least will talk. Isn't it preferable that we work this thing out if we can?
But why was Trump so pissed off after Alaska? Like, if Putin really wants a deal, and if we know what his terms are, I worry there's something else that Putin is seeing the progress that they're having on the ground, which different people dispute how much progress and how incremental or significant the advancements are relative to the casualties. But if that's the case, could he start requesting more terms and that we don't know about? Is there potentially already something other than Istanbul Plus that's not public to us? Do you think Putin could?
Yeah, he might. He might.
He has enough support at home.
I think he has more support to take a more maximalist position than to remain on Istanbul Plus. I think that's where the general support is to finish this thing. I mean, actually, Putin said in an interview about a week ago or 2 weeks ago that the military wants Russia to fulfill the goals of the SMO. They want Russia to win this thing. I mean, he said as much. So, I mean, I think the military, I think the general public in Russia wants Russia to go for an outright victory. Putin wants the victory, but in classic Putin fashion, he's looking at the big picture, and he's looking at the geopolitical big picture, and he's probably still saying to himself and to his team, because we have a Trump administration that, yes, bashes us every now and then, yes, puts out Truth Social posts, whatever, yes, sells weapons to NATO, all of these things, at least they're willing to talk, which is something they didn't have with the previous administration. The previous administration was dead silence. The Europeans, silence. No one in Europe outside of Orban and Fico talked to Russia. So I think it's the right decision for Putin to make, whether he continues full speed ahead with the SMO or whether he continues to negotiate with the United States. Now that he has Trump for another 3.5 years, he's going to continue to try and speak to the Americans, and the Americans are talking back. I mean, you have Rubio is talking to Lavrov. Witkoff still talks to Dmitriev. I mean, there is dialogue that is taking place, and there's a lot of issues that go beyond Ukraine. There's a New START treaty that they need to negotiate.
Yeah,
which is about to
Putin
expire.
said he's willing to extend it. He was the one to say that recently.
Yeah,
Putin
so I mean, there's a lot of issues that they can discuss, that they need to discuss, and I think that Russia looks at it from the point of view that let's take advantage of the fact that we do have an administration, or at least parts of an administration, that are talking to us.
Do you remember how we were very hopeful early on? Some of us were very hopeful that Trump's election could lead to, even people in Russia that I interviewed, could lead to a massive shift in US-Russian relations. And we could even see a shift, which would be a strategic win for the US to kind of get, they're talking about getting India out of that alliance with Russia and China. They're even getting Russia away from China and they're creating an alliance. Like, remember back before Trump was president, just talking to Putin was a no-no, was taboo. Do you remember that? So like, we've gone a long way from this.
We've come a long way. I mean, Biden did a lot of damage. And the Europeans are doing a lot of damage to themselves. They're doing a lot of damage to themselves. Someone in Europe, in one of the big countries, needs to get on a plane and go to Moscow.
Germany.
Yeah, they need to do it because they're crumbling.
Yeah,
they're crumbling.
One last thing I want to ask you about the Ukraine war before we go to the Middle East is what's happening on the ground. It's impossible to know the exact casualties, and obviously different people on both sides mentioned different numbers for both countries. But I think we all agree that the progress has been incremental, unless it's changed over the last few days. But last I looked, it's been very incremental. And I was watching a video of a Ukrainian soldier saying, like, I think it's a American volunteer in Ukraine saying, I think people don't understand how small that progress is. Like he said, I could literally see the previous lines, the 2022 lines, after Ukraine's offensive, and where Russia is now. Like all that progress, I could literally see the starting point where they are today, where that line is today. So are we over-exaggerating Russia's progress? Considering the fact that we don't know their casualties, and what can you tell us on what's happening on the ground?
Well, we don't know the casualties. Ukraine presents one picture, Russia presents another. But if you look at the legislation and the moves that that Ukraine is making, the conscription of older citizens, the possibility that they're going to now conscript under 23-year-olds. If you look at the exchanges of bodies, you see huge differences. And yeah, everyone says, oh, well, that's because Russia's advancing, so they're picking up more bodies. That's why Russia hands over 1,000 Ukrainian fallen soldiers, and Ukraine only hands over 24. That was the last exchange. But when you go down the soldier exchanges, the differences are, I mean, there's such a huge gap. We're talking thousands of soldier differences when they do exchanges of fallen soldiers.
Okay, that's an important metric. That's an important metric.
It's an important metric, and the Ukraine side says, yeah, but that's because Russia's an advancing army. Okay, so then you're admitting that Russia's advancing, right? So nothing holds. They're advancing, so they're able to pick up the bodies. That's why you have more Ukrainians.
Okay, understand. Okay,
yeah, that's what they say. But
which is a fair counter argument. That means they do admit that Russia's progressing.
One, you admit that Russia's advancing, and two, the gaps are so large. I mean, 1,000 to 24. That is the exact number.
That is yeah.
That's pretty. We're not talking 400 and 300. We're talking huge gaps. Yeah. So, I mean, if you go off of this evidence, at least what we have, what we know that's in the public domain, to me, it indicates that Russia is fulfilling the goal of demilitarization. Everyone always forgets what Russia's goal is: demilitarization. They haven't changed their goal. They want to demilitarize Ukraine. One way or another, they're going to do it. If it's through a negotiation and they're demilitarized, which means Ukraine has limits on their army, has limits on their weapons, fine. If it's the other way, I prefer it to be a diplomatic way. But,